Subcommittee will come to order. I am going to reserve on any opening remarks, which if I give some later will not be opening remarks, so don't anybody sharpshoot me on definitions or anything else like that. The subject of today's hearing is the fiscal year 2024 request for the Government Accountability Office. I would like to thank our witnesses for being here. And I would now recognize for opening remarks my ranking member, Mr. Espaillat. The floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. The Government Accountability Office has a tremendous responsibility to provide independent oversight of U.S. government programs, activities, and nonpartisan support to Congress. This subcommittee has a great appreciation of GAO's work. I would like to commend GAO for its work to reinforce Congress' constitutional power of the purse and for dedicating the resources necessary to support this committee. I would also like to commend GAO for its commitment for recruiting and retaining a diverse staff and its track record of earning a top spot among the best employers for veterans and the best places to work for overall. So maybe someday I'll go work for you guys. But anyway, Mr. Dorado, I look forward to your testimony and thank you for being here today.
Thank you. I want to thank you, Mr. Controller General, for your presence here today. And I would now recognize you for a summary of the written testimony that you've submitted.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Espaillat, Congressman Quigley, Congressman Franklin. I appreciate the opportunity to be here today to discuss GAO's fiscal year 2024 request. I appreciate the confidence the subcommittee previously has given us and the resources necessary. I believe we provided a great return on investment as a result of Congress's provision of funds to us. Last year alone, implementation of our recommendations led to over $55 billion in financial benefits to the government. On average, over the last 5 years, GAO's returned $154 in financial benefits to every dollar invested in our activities. We do this through our ongoing programs looking at waste, fraud, abuse in the federal government, as well as identifying overlap, duplication, and fragmentation in our issues. We also regularly, on average every year, have over 1,200 other benefits that help improve public safety, promote the more efficient and effective use of federal resources and programs achieving their objectives, and also a great deal of help in helping Congress craft laws and provide effective oversight over the executive branch to ensure our system of checks and balances works effectively in our government. Now, GAO has a wide footprint across the Congress since our scope is the entire breadth and scope of the federal government. On a regular basis, we receive requests from over 90% of the congressional standing committees. We also have been charged with responsibilities in a number of recent laws in addition to that. The recent Defense National Authorization Act for 2023 has 158 mandates for GAO. The Consolidation Appropriations Act for 2023 has close to 100 additional requirements for GAO studies. The Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act has over 35. The CHIPS Act over 10. The Inflation Reduction Act has a broad mandate for GAO. We have 32 different engagements already planned in that area. Congress also has asked us to oversee the accountability of aid provided to the Ukraine. So we'll be looking at both military aid and Ukrainian and humanitarian assistance, as well as how DOD is replenishing the material that we've provided to Ukraine. Also recently, and this wasn't anticipated in our budget request, the recent bank failures of Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank trigger a mandate that GAO has to look at any systemic risk designation by the regulators, and also to look at the emergency lending facilities set up by the Federal Reserve. We also just recently received a bipartisan request from the House Financial Services Committee. So we'll be launching, I've already signed out letters to the Secretary of Treasury and Chairman of Federal Reserve and the Chairman of the FDIC to begin our analysis of what went wrong here and what recommendations we'd have for the Congress to address this particular situation. Now, our request reflects the hundreds of requirements that we've been given by the Congress, and also I'd like to expand our resources modestly in 4 areas. One is science and technology. Congress has given us additional responsibilities to do technology assessments, to support the Congress, to provide technical assistance to the Congress, to help them understand the developments in science and technology, which are evolving faster than any time in human history. So Congress needs more support. Congress has been encouraging us to broaden our capabilities. We've done that, but we think we continue to need some additional help in that area. Second is cybersecurity. I designated that a high-risk area across the entire federal government in 1997, critical infrastructure protection 2003. There's many recommendations we've made in this area, but the request for us to continue to do work in this area greatly expanded. And I'm not just talking about information systems, I'm talking about weapon systems, satellite systems, and other areas, as well as critical infrastructure, electricity grid, financial markets, et cetera, in that area. Third is national defense. With the conflict in the Ukraine and strategic competition with China and Russia, a lot of attention's been focused on there, on modernizing, for example, our Air Force aircraft systems. We look at the missile defense system all the time, space-based programs and others. So national defense would be the third area. Last would be healthcare. Healthcare costs are the fastest growing part of the federal government's budgets, over 25% right now. If we're ever going to have a shot at getting our deficit and annual debt down, healthcare is critical to that path, as well as bringing down net interest on the debt over a period of time. So we've have a broad portfolio in the healthcare area, and we wanted to continue to address that. We have we have one of the most dedicated and talented workforces among audit organizations in the world. I'm very proud of our people. They're dedicated, very talented. We're a very diverse, multidisciplinary organization. As Congressman Espelotz mentioned, for the last 15 years, during my entire tenure, we've been ranked as one of the best places to work in the federal government. The last 2 years, we've been #1 across mid-sized federal agencies across the government. So I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm happy to address any questions that you may have.
Thanks, General, for your testimony. We're going to go to members now based on their arrival. The gentleman from Illinois, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your service and being here today. So, a lot of requests, a lot of mandates. As well as I can ask this, are you able to do all you need to do given the resources you have? And if challenged with reduction in resources, how do you prioritize where you spend your resources and what you focus on in order of ranking, I guess?
Sure. First, I believe the request I put forward for fiscal year 2024 would provide the resources necessary for GAO to effectively support the Congress in meeting all the mandates that we have and all the requirements. But we need that request to be honored in order to meet
Have
these
you been
requirements.
short resources in the past to get things done on a timely basis?
Yes. I mean, we've struggled since sequestration back in 2013. We lost about 10% or 12%, excuse me, of our authorized staffing levels now to get through that period of time. And we've been steadily working with Congress to build back our capabilities. So we're finally back to the position we were in like 2010. And Congress has been giving us additional support in the science and technology area in particular. to build back the support. So yes, we've struggled in the past. We're back in a pretty good situation right now. I'm hopeful we can continue on this path forward to fully serve the Congress.
What do you do so far? If you have to limit what you do, is just
Right.
putting off when you get something, how
Yes.
long something gets done?
Yeah, yeah.
Or how many resources you can put toward an analysis? And I want to ask this in a sensitive way.
Sure.
Does it affect how well you're able to accomplish a request?
It doesn't affect how well we accomplish it, but it does affect when we get to the request. Right now, we have about 800 audits going on, engagements. We have 88 requests, excuse me, from chairs and ranking members waiting to be staffed in the queue. We have 245 mandates that are waiting to be staffed, but they'll be staffed as we go forward. Now, you asked how we prioritize. We've worked out a prioritization issue with the congressional leadership. It's written in our protocols. Priority one are mandates that are in law or in committee and conference reports accompanying a law, broadest expression of congressional interest. Priority two are chair and ranking members to reinforce our nonpartisan status. We treat both parties the same in terms of access to our resources. We actually have a priority three, which is requests from individual members of Congress, but we haven't had enough resources to do that in about 15, 20 years. So right now you have to get sponsorship from a committee to get into the queue. And then we work with each committee across the Congress to prioritize the work, and there's a constant reprioritization going forward. So we get to everything, but the question is when. For the requests that are in the queue, on average, they'll be there, because mandates keep going ahead of the request, they'll be there about 8 months before we can start those requests. So any degradation in our resource commitment would really push off further starting those work or even being able to entertain new requests from committee chairs and ranking members.
Can you characterize the level of cooperation you typically get, or if there are outliers that are more problematic than others?
Yes, we typically get good cooperation from the executive branch as a general rule, but there have been exceptions to that area, and when there are, I'll go meet with the agency head. I just met recently with Secretary of Education. We were having some issues there. It got resolved within a day or two after that meeting. I've talked to the Department of Justice in the past. Those issues are resolved. I had trouble during the early stages of the pandemic because we were given responsibilities for tracking the $4.6 trillion in aid under the pandemic, give monthly briefings to the Congress, and we were having problems at Small Business Administration. You were very helpful in helping break that situation. So I meet with all the heads of the executive branch departments and agencies as they are confirmed into their jobs and try to establish a good constructive working relationship. So I try to deal with them, and then if I need the help from Congress, I ask.
Very good, thank you. I yield back.
Mr. Franklin, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Chairman. And I don't have a lot for questions, but General, thank you for your testimony. And I'm learning as a new member of the committee and trying to get my arms around all the scope of what these agencies do. And I appreciate you all have a lot on your plate. What strikes me, and I understand the line of questioning of, what's going to give if cuts are required. I see that, but I also see, and what concerns me is just in the technology space, for example, in a 5-year period from 2019 to what you're projecting at the end of 2024, just the FTE, the number of employees in that one section of what you oversee is going to quadruple. So in 5 years, we're talking about headcount quadrupling. Clearly, and we're seeing this across every single thing we touch. I mean, government has exploded in the last 5 years. To me, my perception, my opinion is that's not a sustainable path, but where do you see this going? 5 years from now, is this 200 going to turn into 800?
Yeah, the 200 would put it around the same size as many of the other teams we have across government. You know, we have, so it's coming up. It's like, you know, those horse races where somebody starts like way in the back of the field and then they catch up with the rest of the pack. That's where it is. And most recently, the reason it's grown so fast is that Congress debated whether to recreate the Office of Technology Assessment or beef up GAO's resources. They went with the approach of beefing up GAO's resources. So we were given explicit direction, asked to provide a plan to the Congress to increase our resources in that area. I did so. We've met that plan. Despite speculation we'd have difficulty recruiting people in that area, we've been able to do that. So I've met the plan Congress asked us to do, and the type of requests that we have, I think would bring us up to a pretty good level. I don't expect it to keep growing exponentially as it has in the past.
Well, and looking at the types of things that are contemplated under that, I agree, these are critical needs now, they're areas we need to be focused on. At some point, you know, I would just hope that there's a tendency in government programs that once they come into place, I mean, government never goes away, it only grows, but at some point, we're gonna be forced to make the hard choices to do reallocation. So hopefully some things that have, you know, been necessary before, the need may change, and we're just gonna have to be willing to make the hard decision to reallocate those resources.
I understand. I understand.
I know you do.
I'm the auditor of the federal government's financial statements.
Exactly.
I understand our position, but I also understand GAO provides a lot of return on our investment. So you get more than you put
And
into us.
you're the watchdog
to
over,
get
you
back.
know, ensuring that what we are spending is being done appropriately. I
Actually,
appreciate that.
yeah, we issue an annual report on overlap duplication in the federal government. And the last 12 years, we've had 1,300 recommendations. Congress has implemented fully or partially, or the agency, 74%. It has financial benefits of $552 billion. So it's already over the $500 billion mark. And believe me, I'm judicious in managing our own organization, and I only ask for what we need because I'm aware of our fiscal position, but I'm also aware that Congress is basically out-resourced against the executive branch. And unless you have strong oversight or strong GAO, it's hard to provide effective oversight of what's actually really going on as opposed to what the executive branch puts forward as their position on that issue. So Congress needs independent check and balance, and GAO provides that.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
To the gentleman from the Empire State, Ranking Member Espaillat, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, Controller, I know that the Appropriations Law Group has done tremendous work as we seek legal opinions about the different work that we do here. It's so important for us to be in compliance with the Constitution, with the law. And I know that they continue to do good work, and I want to commend you for the resources that you have dedicated to that particular group. And I just wanted you to share with us what are some of the things, the services that they provide that are so relevant and important to the work that we do.
Actually, their responsibilities go directly to the heart of Congress's power of the purse. They're the experts in appropriation law decisions. We've issued 42 decisions since March 2020 as to whether or not the agencies are following the direction given by the appropriation committees in the law. And sometimes we find that they don't heed that. There's provisions, for example, that they consult with the Congress before they make a change. Sometimes they don't do that. Also, we train congressional staff in appropriation law decisions. So we have regular classes that we provide in addition to regular rulings in that area. We also have responsibilities in the Congressional Review Act as to whether or not we look at all major rules given to the Congress that gives them the ability to say, to act to stop a rule if they don't agree with it. And we've issued, a couple hundred decisions in that area. So we're also the Vacancies Act There's only supposed to be people serving in acting positions for a certain period of time, so we monitor that across the executive branch. And then also, very importantly, we issue decisions on anti-deficiency. You know, one thing we check is Congress's direction is supposed to determine what agencies spend the money on. So we make sure that they spend the money that Congress directed them to, but on the flip side, if they spend more than Congress authorized, that's an anti-deficiency violation, and we point that out to the Congress.
I know that you're also doing work on enhancing cybersecurity, and just recently, the Washington, D.C. Health Exchange was compromised with exposing confidential information about our team, ourselves. This is a growing problem in a very hostile world environment. What are you doing? What are the priorities of the Center for Enhanced Cybersecurity as we move forward?
Yes. I do not believe the federal government's operating at a pace of strengthening computer security commensurate with the evolving grave threat. We've been doing this. I've been pushing this. I mentioned in my opening remarks. We designated it high risk across the federal government in 1997. We've got Congress to pass a series of laws. It's a little better, but most federal agencies now still do not have effective information security programs. And since 2010, we've issued 4,000 recommendations. 860 are still open. So we're going to continue to follow up there. We're doing more work also in critical infrastructure protection. The federal agencies try to encourage voluntary compliance, but basically the federal government really doesn't know how prepared the private sector is to deal with these issues until like there's a ransomware attack with Colonial Pipeline or others. So I've been trying to encourage more information sharing between the government and the private sector, more building up capacity in the federal agencies. This center we've had for 25 years now. I've been expanding the group of it. We're going to now, in addition to looking at current threats, we need to look ahead. Artificial intelligence will bring new threats in this area. It has a lot of advantages. Like most technologies have good advantages, but they have a darker side to them. And quantum computing, another one, which would be able to break all the current encryption techniques that do occur. Blockchain technologies, we're having a pilot right now with Treasury that would enable us to audit if they move to blockchain technology, but it will require a different type of auditing. In artificial intelligence, we've issued a framework so we can be positioned to audit algorithms used under artificial intelligence go forward, but our computer security people will be focused on that as well going forward.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Gentlelady from Oklahoma is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for being here with us this morning. I want to start, you mentioned the cybersecurity aspect in last Congress. I had the great pleasure of serving on the new subcommittee on House Armed Services focused on cyber. I don't think that there's enough emphasis put on the ramifications of a cyber attack across government. One of the things that I have been focused on is what they call rip and replace of technology hardware that has been installed throughout government, whether that's local, state, municipal, or other agencies, that is equipment from adversarial nations. Do you have a little bit of insight that you can share with us about that rip and replace program? My understanding is there was there was $1.9 billion allocated for that program. There were over $5 billion in requests. There has just now been a first let to be able to start doing that. But this is an important piece because the potential harm that can be done by having this equipment within our infrastructure is grave. And I don't know that it's gotten enough attention. Can you speak a little bit to that?
Absolutely. Yeah, on this particular program, I don't think we've done a detailed evaluation, but on the broader issue, I'll check, and if we do, I will let you know. But, because we can't get to everything that we've been asked to do. But the broader issue you bring up is supply chain issues. We've done a lot of work on supply chain issues in information technology. We've come up with a set of best practices. We compared those to what agencies are doing, including defense, found them short of those best practices in that area. And actually, we issued that report before the SolarWinds incident happened. So we're pushing, we're very aware of this problem. You're right to be concerned about it. I am too. And I'd like to do more work in that area because you don't really know. I mean, we're going to zero trust architecture, which is all based upon knowing who, you know, and along in the supply chain you can trust in that basis. So it's because otherwise it becomes insidious, and you don't really know.
And to follow up on that, can you talk a little bit about the technology that GAO is using currently and what you're looking to potentially upgrade in the near future? I know there's a lot of different, whether that's e-discovery software or other things that would be helpful. Talk a little bit about where you are now and what the future looks like for the organization.
Sure. Yeah, we're in the process now of moving to the cloud in most of our operations. So we've had a multi-year modernization underway. I want to make sure it's secure and we have good computer security over the information we have as well. We are replacing our document management system, which is all the records that we keep for our audits. The system we have in place now is 30-some years old, maybe 40. So we're replacing that as we go forward.
How long do you anticipate that process to take?
I'm hopeful if we get the support from the committee that we can have that done within the next year or two.
And you started that process in?
Well, we started moving to the cloud a few years ago, like our emails in the cloud now, but not all of our operations are in the cloud. So the cloud operations, that migration will probably take, and I want to be careful about how we're doing it, make sure we have good security and that we have good, you know, access to everything we need. You know, some of these contracts haven't been struck very carefully, and so I want to do that. And then hopefully we'll be able to replace the document management system. We're on track to try to do that next fiscal year.
One of the challenges I see with the procurement and acquisitions structure is that it takes so long to move to new software applications or new technologies. And I think that we're up against a time crunch now. We don't have time to spend waiting for approval at every step. In some cases, we need to really figure out how can we move forward quickly because we're falling behind. And I think that's a really dangerous place for us to be. So certainly anything that we can do to speed up that procurement and acquisitions process, particularly for software and technology, I'm happy to help with. So.
Yeah, well, the basic thing would be having clear stability in our funding. I mean, part of the problem is that, you know, almost every year we're going to continuing resolution process. So we enter a year and maybe a quarter through the year or half through the year. We don't know what our funding's going to be for that year. So it's hard to enter into a multi-year procurement without knowing that you're going to be able to honor your commitments that you're making. We've also created, on our audit side, an innovation lab where we're testing new technologies and being able to do things there for how we audit. And so I'm very aware of the issue. Part of the problem we had, I mentioned earlier in response to one of the questions, that during sequestration, we lost 12% of our staff. We also stopped a lot of our IT modernizations during that period of time, so I didn't have to lay people off. I didn't want to lose our talent base. And so we're still catching up from some of those problems we've had in the past. And I hope with robust funding, we can move quicker.
Great, thank you. My time has expired, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Additional questions from any committee members for the general? Seeing none. General, I've got a few. You've alluded to it in your testimony, but you know, what we've been asked to do is 100% of your work requirements generated by members of the House and Senate?
Almost 100%. There's a small number, like 5%, that I'll reserve to determine new areas that we need to invest in. Like originally, a lot of computer security work I did on our own, then Congress starts asking. Part of that includes budget scrubs that we do for the Appropriation Committee. So we go through the President's budget request every year for major departments and agencies and see where there's unused obligations, for example, where there's a need to, reduce funds in some areas that they've got carryover money. So that's all done under my authority rather than have requests from the committees every year, because we do that remotely. We also do a lot of work on identifying fraud, waste, and abuse in the government under our look. And then I'll do some targeted areas. For example, our housing agencies, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, a lot of institutions, they're still in federal conservatorship from the 2008-2009 global financial crisis. And a lot of the housing risk right now, if there's a downturn in the housing economy, lays at the federal government's footstep, because the federal government's either directly or indirectly guaranteeing about 70% of individual home mortgages. And so, I issued a framework for the Congress that they could use in making decisions on how to decide whether to privatize Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, go back to a different model, hybrid models to help Congress make decisions. But most of it's driven by the mandates and requests.
So is it fair to say that 100% of what you do is either direct request or related to that oversight function that you play in supporting the Congress?
Absolutely.
Okay. And so you're in a unique situation, and actually the committee's in a unique situation, that it's no surprise to anybody here that the general atmosphere is going to be, okay, how can we cut, how can we reduce, blah, blah, blah. It's your job to take a look at if people are doing what they were supposed to do, being asked by the vast majority of those comments or missions, if you will, are generated by specific legislation, committee chairs, committee ranking members, that sort of stuff. So if you were going to play the GAO, looking at yourself when this committee comes forward with its recommendations in front of the full committee and then on the floor, what would you say? Hey, here's why. And I'm not putting words in your mouth, they'll be your words, but it's like, if you value oversight, if you value responsiveness, if you value, go ahead and take off from there.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, first, I would say if Congress wants to have an aggressive posture on reducing waste, fraud, and abuse in the federal government, if Congress wants to generate good ideas, smart ideas on how to cut the federal government's spending without harming individuals, and if Congress wants an effective oversight mechanism over the executive branch, you need a strong GAO to be able to do that. And without us being strong, your ability, Congress's ability to manage and oversee the rest of the federal government will be severely diminished, in my opinion.
Okay? Thank you. I want to thank you for your testimony. Members may submit additional questions, not forever, within, if you've got additional questions, please contact the committee staff so that we can get them to you and they can be meaningful in time for markup and that sort of stuff. General, thank you very much. Appreciate your appearance and your testimony. The meeting is adjourned.